Commander Vexlar stood on the observation deck of the Galactic Alliance flagship, Inexorable Conquest. His four slender arms folded behind his back as he gazed down at the blue-green world hanging in the void before him. Earth, home of the humans. Soon to be another conquest for the mighty Chryslak Empire, and by extension, their Galactic Alliance. What a disappointment, Vexlar murmured, his vertical pupils narrowing as he took in the planet's features. Their broadcasts made them seem so formidable. Science Officer Nixara approached, her scales gleaming under the deck's ambient lighting. The humans put up more resistance than expected, Commander. Their military technology may be primitive compared to ours, but they displayed remarkable adaptability. Vexlar waved a dismissive hand. 17 standard cycles, Nixara. 17 cycles is all it took to bring a supposedly advanced species to its knees. Adaptability means nothing when facing superior firepower. Nevertheless, Nixara continued, her voice carrying the subtle harmonic undertones of scientific curiosity. I've been studying their broadcasts, their entertainment as they call it. The humans had a curious obsession with stories about their own defeat and subsequent comeback. Post-apocalyptic fiction. As if they were rehearsing for this very moment. Vexlar snorted, a harsh sound that caused junior officers nearby to flinch. And for all their rehearsing, they still failed. Their nations squabbled among themselves even as we decimated their cities. Their leaders betrayed one another to save their own territories. And now, the last human stronghold is about to fall. The communications array chimed, and General Draz's holographic form materialized before them. The veteran warrior's scarred face broke into the Chryslak equivalent of a smile, a baring of serrated teeth that never failed to unnerve even the most hardened Alliance soldiers. Commander Vexlar Draz growled, I bring glorious news. The human fortress known as Cayenne Mountain has been breached. Their remaining leadership has been captured or eliminated. Victory is ours. A cheer went up from the bridge crew, their various appendages gesticulating in species-specific celebrations. Vexlar allowed himself a small chittering sound of satisfaction. Excellent work, General. Prepare to receive your extraction team. We'll begin resource collection immediately. There is one peculiarity, Commander, Draz said, his tone shifting. During the final assault, we detected unusual energy readings from deep within the mountain, some kind of ancient facility beneath their command center. Vexlar's antenna twitched with mild interest. Weapon systems, unknown. The readings don't match any known human technology. They appear to be running on independent power sources, possibly some last-ditch defense mechanism. Have your specialists examine it, Vexlar ordered. If it's a weapon, disable it. If it's a communications array, destroy it. If it's a database, extract it. Don't leave anything to chance. As you command. Draz saluted, and his hologram flickered out of existence. Nixara approached, her datapad displaying scrolling information. Commander, I've been analyzing those energy readings. They match nothing in our databases, but they share certain characteristics with suspended animation technology. Cryogenics, Vexlar scoffed. The humans were experimenting with primitive versions, but none were viable for long-term use. This is different, Nixara insisted. These readings are sophisticated, possibly indicating hundreds of suspension pods, and they're activating, Commander. One by one, they're powering up. For the first time, a flicker of unease passed through Vexlar's compound eyes. Order General Draz to destroy that facility immediately. Whatever the humans were preserving, I want it eliminated. Transmitting now, Nixara confirmed, her slender fingers dancing across the communication console. The response came back almost immediately, but it wasn't from General Draz. It was an automated distress signal, broadcasting on all Alliance frequencies. The holographic display showed chaos, cries like soldiers running, firing weapons at unseen attackers. The camera view jolted wildly before stabilizing on General Draz's face, his normally composed features contorted with something Vexlar had never seen before. Fear. They were waiting for us, Draz gasped, blood ichor seeping from a wound in his thorax. The humans, they're not like the ones we fought. Faster, stronger. They knew our tactics, our weaknesses. Evacuation impossible. Facility designation, Project Lazarus. They say they've been sleeping for centuries, waiting for this day. The day when the transmission cut off abruptly, replaced by static. Vexlar stood frozen, his exoskeleton suddenly feeling too tight, too restrictive. Impossible, he whispered. We defeated their armies, their greatest weapons, their orbital defenses. Commander, the tactical officer called out, panic edging his voice. Multiple launches detected from Earth's surface. They appear to be transport vessels, hundreds of them rising from hidden facilities all across the planet. Intercept them, Vexlar ordered, snapping out of his momentary shock. All ships, target those launches. But even as he gave the command, Vexlar knew it was too late. The tactical display showed the human vessels accelerating at impossible speeds, dispersing in all directions. Some were heading straight for Alliance ships. They're not responding to targeting systems, the weapons officer reported, mandibles clicking in distress. It's as if they're running on completely unfamiliar technology. Our systems can't lock on. Nixara's voice was quiet beside him. Commander, I've decoded part of a transmission from one of the vessels, audio only. Play it, Vexlar ordered, bracing himself. A human voice, deep and unnervingly calm, filled the bridge. This is Colonel James Lazarus, of Earth's Dormant Defense Initiative. To the species that thought they conquered humanity, you have merely awakened us. For centuries we have slept beneath the earth, the last line of defense, activated only when all others had fallen. You've studied our broadcasts, our culture, our weapons, but you missed the most important lesson humanity had to teach. We are at our most dangerous when we have nothing left to lose. Today you will learn what happens when the last human falls, and the first super soldier rises. The message ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Preposterous, Vexlar finally said, though his voice lacked conviction. They're bluffing, a desperate ploy. The ship suddenly shuddered, alarms blaring as emergency lighting bathed the bridge in crimson. Impact in Hangar Bay 3, the security chief reported. Boarding craft attached, security teams responding, but his voice cut off as the ship rocked again. Commander, Nixara said, her voice strangely calm as she studied her readings. I believe we've made a terrible miscalculation. The humans we fought, they weren't humanity's true defenders. They were simply the caretakers. Colonel James Lazarus felt the familiar burn of awakening in every cell of his enhanced body. 273 years of cryo-sleep left his muscles stiff, despite the genetic modifications and nanotechnology that had kept him technically alive all this time. His pod had been the first to activate when the Omega Protocol was enacted, when the last free human government fell, just as they had planned centuries ago. Status report, he ordered, his voice rough from disuse. Dr. Elena Chen, the initiative's chief medical officer, and one of the first awakened, handed him a tablet displaying scrolling information. All 7,000 Lazarus units worldwide are in various stages of revival. Advanced teams have already secured several key positions and captured enemy vessels. Phase 1 is proceeding ahead of schedule. Lazarus nodded, scanning the intel. In the 21st century, as humanity had begun to detect strange signals from the depths of space, a small group of visionaries had recognized the existential threat. While governments focused on conventional defenses, Project Lazarus had been established in secret, a last-ditch effort to ensure humanity's survival. They had selected the best soldiers, scientists, and strategists, enhanced them with experimental technologies too dangerous and controversial for public use, and then they had gone to sleep, hidden in facilities around the world, programmed to awaken only when humanity's fall seemed inevitable. "What are we facing?" Lazarus asked, strapping on the exoskeleton that would amplify his already enhanced strength. "They call themselves the Chryslak, the dominant species in a coalition known as the Galactic Alliance," Elena explained, helping him adjust the neural interface. "Insectoid in appearance, hierarchical society, advanced energy weapons, faster than light travel. Conventional human forces held them off for 17 years, but they were eventually overwhelmed. Casualties." Elena's expression darkened. "Approximately 40% of the human population. The rest are being rounded up for processing, labor camps, resource extraction." Lazarus felt a cold fury building within him, but kept his expression neutral. Emotion had its place, but not now. Now was the time for calculated retribution, and our advantages. "They don't know we exist, for one," Elena replied, her eyes gleaming with fierce intelligence. "The regular military never knew about Project Lazarus. That was by design. More importantly, our technology is fundamentally different from what humanity was using during the war. While they were fighting with conventional weapons, we were sleeping with quantum entanglement drives, zero-point energy weapons, and neural interface combat systems. The fruits of 2 centuries of secret development," Lazarus mused, "created specifically for this scenario." "Precisely. Our founders knew that any species advanced enough to cross interstellar space would likely overwhelm our conventional defenses, so they created unconventional ones, us." A young lieutenant approached, offering a crisp salute. "Colonel, T-Maz has secured an enemy command vessel in orbit. They're transmitting enemy tactical data and communications protocols now." "Good," Lazarus said. "What about the Heimdall protocol?" "Active and functioning," the lieutenant confirmed. "Our deep space sentinels have been monitoring Alliance movements since they first approached our solar system. We have detailed maps of their supply lines, colony worlds, and fleet positions." Lazarus allowed himself a small grim smile. "Then it's time for Phase 2. Deploy the Valkyrie teams to the labor camps. I want every human captive liberated within 72 hours. Meanwhile, I'll take a strike team to their flagship." His eyes hardened. "Let's show these Chryslak what humanity is truly capable of when pushed to the brink." Fleet Admiral Zekvora, Supreme Commander of the Galactic Alliance Invasion Force, had been enjoying a ceremonial feast aboard his personal dreadnought Eternal Dominion when the first reports of unusual activity came in. Initially, he had dismissed them as isolated resistance, pockets of human fighters making futile last stands. Now 6 hours later, as he strode through the chaos of his command center, he was forced to acknowledge that the situation was far more dire. "How many ships have we lost?" he demanded, his massive frame towering over the tactical officers. 17 destroyers and 4 carriers, Admiral, his second-in-command reported, trying to maintain composure. "The humans are using captured vessels to attack others. They've somehow bypassed our security protocols." "Impossible." Zekvora slammed his armored fist into a nearby console, shattering it. "Our biometric safeguards cannot be circumvented. They've developed some kind of mimetic interface," the science officer explained, trembling slightly. "It allows them to operate our technology as if they were Chryslak themselves. And Admiral, they're liberating the processing camps. All of them simultaneously." Zekvora's compound eyes narrowed to slits. This was planned, all of it. He turned to his communications officer. "Contact the homeworld. Request immediate reinforcements." "We've been trying, Admiral. All subspace channels are being jammed. We can't reach beyond this solar system." A sudden commotion at the entrance to the command center drew everyone's attention. Two Chryslac guards flew through the doorway, their exoskeletons shattered. In their place stood a human male, unremarkable in appearance save for his eyes, cold, calculating, and utterly without fear. Behind him stood several more humans, each wearing form-fitting armor, unlike anything the Alliance had encountered during the war. They moved with unnatural grace and precision, seeming to anticipate the guards' movements before they happened. Admiral Zekvora, the lead human, said, his voice unnervingly calm, "I am Colonel James Lazarus. I believe you've been looking for humanity's surrender." Zekvora's guard detail moved to attack, but with blinding speed, the humans dispatched them. Their movements were too fast, too precise, not like the humans they had fought before. "What are you?" Zekvora demanded, unconsciously taking a step back. "We are humanity's contingency plan," Lazarus replied. "For centuries we waited, hidden beneath the surface of our world, enhanced, augmented, prepared. We are what humanity created when they looked to the stars and understood that one day we would not be alone, and our visitors might not be friendly. You cannot hope to defeat the Alliance," Zekvora said, trying to sound confident, despite the growing unease in his thorax. "We span thousands of worlds, hundreds of species. This is merely one battle." "No," Lazarus corrected him, stepping closer. "This is the first battle of a new war. You came to our world, Admiral. You killed our people. You thought us weak because we fought with restraint." His voice hardened. "That restraint is now gone." Before Zekvora could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. "Admiral," his tactical officer called out, "multiple human vessels are departing the system at impossible speeds. They appear to be heading toward our core worlds." Lazarus smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "While we're having this conversation, Admiral, my teams are disabling your fleet and uploading your entire database. We now know the location of every Alliance world, every shipyard, every defense system. We know your weaknesses, your internal conflicts, the species you've subjugated, who might welcome liberation." For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Zekvora felt genuine fear, not for himself, but for the Alliance he had served his entire life. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "First, the immediate and unconditional withdrawal of all Alliance forces from Earth space. Second, the release of all human captives. Third," Lazarus paused, his eyes growing colder, "you will carry a message back to your leadership." "What message?" "That humanity is no longer merely defending its homeworld. Tell them that when they killed the last free human, they awakened something they cannot comprehend, and now we're coming for them." Nixara had always prided herself on her scientific detachment. As a xenobiologist for the Chryslac Empire, she had studied dozens of species, cataloging their strengths and weaknesses with clinical precision. But as she watched the human called Lazarus systematically dismantle the Alliance's command structure aboard the flagship, she felt something new, a growing fascination tinged with dread. They had completely misunderstood humans. The Alliance had observed Earth for decades before the invasion, monitoring their broadcasts, their internet, their conflicts. They had concluded that humans were divided, fractious, and technologically inferior. Their resistance had been calculated to last no more than 5 years. That it had taken 17 was surprising but not alarming. What no one had anticipated was that humans had created their own contingency plan centuries ago, one that operated completely outside their normal power structures. Now hiding in an observation bay, Nixara watched as Lazarus interfaced with the Alliance computer systems through some kind of neural link. His eyes were closed, yet his fingers moved across the alien interface with perfect precision. "You can come out now, Science Officer Nixara," he said without opening his eyes. "I've known you were there since I entered the room." Startled, Nixara emerged from her hiding place. How did you know my name? My rank? Lazarus opened his eyes, disconnecting from the console. Your ship's personnel files. But more importantly, your biorhythms are distinct from the Chrysalak. You're the only arachnid on board, aren't you? An expert in xenobiology, specifically brought in to study humans. Nyxara's mandibles clicked in surprise. You can distinguish species by their biorhythms. One of many augmentations, Lazarus replied, studying her with clinical interest. My team and I were designed to adapt to any potential alien physiology we might encounter. Your presence here is actually fortunate. I have questions. I am a prisoner then, Nyxara asked, trying to maintain scientific composure. You're a resource, Lazarus corrected. The Alliance made a critical error in its assessment of humanity. I'm curious about how that happened. Despite her situation, Nyxara's scientific curiosity asserted itself. We studied your broadcasts, your internet, your wars. You appeared divided, tribal. Your technology was impressive for a single-planet species, but nothing that could challenge Alliance weaponry. Lazarus nodded. A reasonable conclusion based on incomplete data. But you missed something fundamental about humans, Nyxara. Something your Alliance is about to learn the hard way. And what is that? Humans plan for failure, Lazarus said simply. Throughout our history, our greatest advances have come from preparing for worst-case scenarios. Project Lazarus wasn't an anomaly, it was the logical extension of human thinking. While our governments built conventional defenses, a shadow program created us, soldiers and scientists enhanced beyond normal human limitations, preserved to fight a war after the war was lost. Nyxara processed this information, her scientific mind racing. You were designed specifically to counter us. Not you specifically, any technologically superior invader. Our creators didn't know who might come, only that someone eventually would. So they created adaptive soldiers, humans enhanced with technologies too experimental, too dangerous for widespread use. But how did you remain hidden? Our scans detected all human military installations. Lazarus smiled thinly. Our facilities were designed to mimic natural formations. Our power signatures were masked by Earth's own magnetic field. And most importantly, almost no living humans knew we existed. Can't reveal what you don't know. A chime sounded from the console, and Lazarus turned his attention to it briefly. It seems Phase 2 is complete. All human detention camps have been liberated. Alliance forces are in full retreat from Earth orbit. He looked back at Nyxara, which brings me to why I wanted to speak with you. You need a scientist familiar with Alliance biology, Nyxara guessed, her analytical mind already understanding his purpose. Precisely. The Alliance brought this war to Earth, but we intend to bring it back to your worlds. Not out of vengeance, though many of my kind would desire that, but because we recognize that an enemy that attacked once will attack again, unless they understand that the cost is too high. Nyxara felt a chill run through her exoskeleton. You intend to attack Alliance worlds? No, Lazarus corrected. We intend to liberate them. Our intelligence suggests that many species within the Alliance are there through coercion rather than choice. The Chrysalak Empire has been using other species as pawns for centuries. He leaned closer. Help us, Nyxara. Help us understand which worlds might welcome liberation. Which species might become allies rather than subjects. You're proposing to dismantle the Galactic Alliance, Nyxara said, mandibles clicking in astonishment. We're proposing to rebuild it, Lazarus countered, as a true alliance of equals, not an empire masquerading as one. Your own species, the arachnids, they were conquered 3 centuries ago, weren't they? Forced to provide scientific expertise to Chrysalak military projects. Nyxara couldn't hide her surprise. How could you know that? That information is restricted even within the Alliance. We've been very busy in your databases, Lazarus said, and we're quick studies. For the first time in her career, Nyxara found herself contemplating something radical, the possibility that the alliance she had served her entire life might not be the benevolent force she had been taught to believe in. The data was compelling, the logic sound. "If I were to help you," she said carefully, "what guarantee do I have that humans won't simply replace the Chryslak as the dominant force?" "None," Lazarus admitted. "Except for this project, Lazarus was created with specific constraints. We were designed to defend humanity, not to rule it, or anyone else. Once this conflict is resolved, we return to our pods, to sleep until needed again. You would voluntarily relinquish power." The concept seemed alien to Nyxara, whose species had lived under Chryslak dominance for generations. "It is our purpose," Lazarus said simply. "We are guardians, not conquerors." Nyxara studied the human before her, applying all her scientific training to detect deception. She found none. Either the human was telling the truth, or he was a better liar than any species she had ever encountered. "I will help you," she decided, her scientific curiosity and long-buried hope for her own species' freedom overriding her loyalty to the Alliance. "But I have conditions. Name them. My homeworld must be among the first liberated, and I want to study you, your enhancements, your adaptations. The scientific knowledge alone would be significant." Lazarus considered for a moment, then nodded. "Agreed on one condition of my own. Your research will be conducted jointly with human scientists, and any technologies developed will be shared equally." "Acceptable," Nyxara said, extending one of her limbs in what she had learned was a human gesture of agreement. As they shook hands, Nyxara couldn't help but notice the implants visible beneath Lazarus's skin when his sleeve shifted, microscopic machines interfacing directly with his nervous system. What other modifications lay beneath that seemingly ordinary human exterior? The scientist in her was fascinated. The galaxy, she realized, was about to change in ways none of them could fully predict. General Draz had expected to die in the tunnels beneath the human mountain fortress. When the strange humans had emerged from their hidden chambers, moving faster than any organic being should, shrugging off weapons fire that would have vaporized normal soldiers, he had prepared himself for a warrior's end. Instead, he had been captured. And now, 3 days later, he found himself being escorted through a facility that defied his understanding of human capabilities. "This way, General," his guard said, a human female whose enhanced strength had become apparent when she had effortlessly restrained him during his capture. Her name, he had learned, was Major Sanvi Patel. "Where are you taking me?" Draz demanded, trying to maintain his dignity despite his prisoner status. "Colonel Lazarus wishes to show you something before your return to your people," Major Patel replied, her tone professional but not hostile. They passed through security checkpoints, where humans worked alongside machinery that looked nothing like the technology Draz had encountered during the war. This was more advanced, more elegant, almost artistic in its complexity. Finally, they reached a vast chamber dominated by a holographic display of the galaxy. Around it stood humans in various uniforms, discussing strategy with an efficiency that reminded Draz of the Chryslak Military Council, except these humans seemed to reach consensus more quickly, without the political maneuvering that plagued alliance planning sessions. Colonel Lazarus stood at the center, directing operations with quiet authority. He acknowledged Draz's arrival with a nod. "General, thank you for joining us. I thought you should see this before you depart." Draz looked at the holographic display and felt his blood run cold. It showed Alliance fleet positions throughout the galaxy, information that should have been highly classified. "How did you access this data?" he asked, mandibles clicking in distress. "Your encryption was designed to keep out conventional hackers," Lazarus explained. "We are not conventional, but that's not what I brought you here to see." He gestured, and the display zoomed in on a sector near the Chryslak homeworld. Several Alliance battle groups were shown retreating from human pursuit vessels. "As we speak, General, Your forces are being pushed back from 27 different star systems, not through superior numbers, but through superior adaptability. Your commanders don't understand what they're facing, so they're making predictable decisions. Why show me this? Draz asked. To gloat, to educate, Lazarus corrected. In 48 hours, you will be returned to Alliance space with a peace proposal. I want you to understand why your leadership should accept it. The Alliance does not surrender, Draz said stiffly. This isn't about surrender, a new voice said. Draz turned to see the arachnid scientist, Nix Ara, entering the chamber. It's about evolution. Draz's compound eyes widened in shock. You're collaborating with them. I'm pursuing truth, General. Nix Ara replied calmly. The Alliance has maintained power through technological superiority and carefully managed information. Both advantages have now been neutralized. Lazarus gestured again, and the holographic display shifted to show various Alliance worlds. These 11 planets contain species that were incorporated into the Alliance through force. We've already made contact with resistance movements on each of them. Impossible, Draz whispered. Those resistance groups were eliminated generations ago. Not eliminated, Nix Ara corrected. Driven underground. And now, with human assistance, they're re-emerging. The peace proposal is simple, Lazarus continued. The Alliance withdraws from all forcibly colonized worlds. Those species are given the choice to remain, leave, or form a new coalition. The Chryslak Empire returns to its original borders. In exchange, humanity shares certain technologies, medical advancements, sustainable energy systems, agricultural innovations, not weapons. Draz struggled to process what he was hearing. You could destroy us. Why offer peace at all? Because destruction is easy, General, Lazarus said, his voice softening slightly. Rebuilding is the true challenge. Humanity learned that lesson through centuries of our own wars. We have no desire to teach it to you through experience. Major Patel spoke up. The Colonel is being diplomatic, General. The truth is, we don't want to rule the galaxy. We just want to live in it, peacefully if possible. Project Lazarus wasn't created to build an empire. It was created to ensure human survival. And if we refuse? Draz asked, already suspecting the answer. Lazarus's expression hardened. Then we continue what we've started. Within 1 standard year, the Alliance as you know it will cease to exist. Not through genocide, we're not like you, but through targeted strikes against military and command infrastructure, combined with support for internal resistance. The Alliance will collapse from within. You would destroy centuries of galactic stability, Draz protested. The stability of the prison is not something its inmates celebrate, General, Nix Ara pointed out. Many worlds would welcome the change. Draz looked around the command center, noting the efficiency, the purpose with which these enhanced humans moved. In just 3 days, they had reversed what had taken the Alliance 17 years to achieve. And they had done it with a fraction of the numbers. I will convey your proposal, he finally said, his voice heavy with the weight of inevitability. But the High Command may not be receptive. They will be, Lazarus said with quiet confidence. Because along with you and the proposal, we're sending back something else. Proof. Proof of what? Of exactly what happens if they refuse. A demonstration on an uninhabited moon in Chryslak space. Something to help them understand that this isn't a negotiation between equals. It's an opportunity we're offering them, one they would be wise to accept. For the first time in his military career, General Draz felt true fear for the future of the Alliance. Not because these humans were monsters, but because they weren't. They were methodical, efficient, and worst of all, reasonable. They didn't want vengeance, they wanted change. And Draz was beginning to suspect they would get it, one way or another. 6 months later, Elena Chen stood beside Colonel Lazarus on the observation deck of the repurposed Alliance vessel they had renamed New Dawn. Below them, the blue-green sphere of Earth rotated serenely, showing little external evidence of the devastating war it had endured. The reconstruction efforts are ahead of schedule, Elena reported, reviewing data on her tablet. The nanotechnology we've adapted from our medical systems is accelerating the cleanup of major urban centers. Estimated 3 years until pre-war population centers are fully habitable again. Lazarus nodded, his expression contemplative. And our people, Elena knew he wasn't referring to humanity as a whole, but to the 7,000 enhanced soldiers and scientists of Project Lazarus who had turned the tide of the war. Most have accepted the terms of our original programming, she said carefully. They'll return to cryosleep once the immediate crisis has passed. Some, however, are questioning. That was inevitable, Lazarus acknowledged. We were designed to win an impossible war. Now that we've done so, the question of our place in the world was bound to arise. The world has changed, James, Elena said, using his first name as she only did in private. The public knows about us now. They're calling us heroes. Heroes have a tendency to become myths, then legends, then gods. Lazarus replied with a frown. That path leads nowhere good. And yet we can't simply go back to sleep and pretend none of this happened. Elena countered. Humanity is now a galactic power. The Alliance is reforming under new leadership, with the arachnids taking a prominent role, thanks to Nixara. We have responsibilities. Our responsibility was to ensure humanity's survival, Lazarus said. We've done that, have we? Elena challenged him gently. The threat isn't gone, just transformed. If we go back to sleep, who guides humanity's integration into galactic society? Who ensures we don't become what we defeated? Before Lazarus could respond, a chime announced an incoming transmission. The holographic form of Nixara appeared before them, her arachnid features somehow conveying excitement, despite their alien configuration. Colonel Doctor, she greeted them. The Galactic Council has ratified the final treaty. It's official, the Chryslak Empire has been dissolved, and the new Galactic Cooperative has been established in its place. With humanity as a founding member, Elena noted with satisfaction. Indeed, Nixara confirmed. Your delegation performed admirably. The transition has been more peaceful than any of us anticipated. What of the Chryslak themselves? Lazarus asked. How are they adjusting to their new status? Better than expected, Nixara replied. Their military caste resisted initially, but the scientific and civilian castes saw the benefits of the new arrangement quickly enough. Their world remains intact, their culture preserved, just their ability to dominate others removed. A fitting outcome, Lazarus said with a nod. Thank you for the update, Nixara. Please convey my congratulations to the Council. After Nixara's hologram disappeared, Elena turned to Lazarus. You see, this is why we can't simply return to hibernation. The galaxy is reorganizing itself, and humanity needs guides who understand both where we came from and what we're capable of. Lazarus was silent for a long moment, looking down at Earth. When he finally spoke, his voice was thoughtful. When the founders created Project Lazarus, they envisioned us as a last resort, a final guardian to ensure humanity's survival when all else failed. They didn't anticipate that we would succeed so completely, or that we would help reshape galactic politics in the process. They couldn't have, Elena agreed. They were working with the information they had, just as we must now work with the reality we face. Lazarus turned to her, his enhanced eyes studying her with unnerving intensity. What are you proposing, exactly? A compromise, Elena said. Some of us stay awake, a small contingent to guide humanity's transition into this new galactic community. To serve as advisors, teachers, intermediaries. The rest return to cryosleep as planned, ready if needed again. And who decides which of us stay awake? Lazarus asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Those who want to, Elena said simply. This was never meant to be a prison, James.
We fulfilled our purpose. Now we have choices, just like the species we've helped liberate. Lazarus turned back to the viewport, watching as the Terminator line crossed Earth's surface, plunging continents into darkness, while illuminating others with dawn's light. The Founders would say we're overstepping our mandate, he murmured. The Founders created us to save humanity, Elena countered. Sometimes salvation means more than just survival. It means creating a future worth surviving for. After a long moment, Lazarus nodded slowly. Prepare a proposal, volunteer basis only, no more than 10% of our personnel to remain active at any given time, with rotations every decade to prevent any one group from becoming too influential. Elena smiled, relief evident in her expression. I'll draft it immediately. As she turned to leave, Lazarus called after her, Elena, make sure everyone understands.